I can tell you stories about conversations I've had with senior people who literally could not answer like the most basic questions on cybersecurity. Like, for example, I had this one dude. I asked to do a public key exchange with them, right? It was via email. So I'm just like, hey, let's just do a public key exchange, right? So let me guess. Can you guess what they sent back? He sent back to me.
The private
Yes,
key.
he did. And it was over email, which everyone knows is unencrypted.
Right, just sent you the public key.
Who says tech can't be human?
What's going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to the show. I have brought in a cybersecurity superstar. How bright, you ask? This is one of the only people that I know with hundreds of thousands of followers on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of those platforms where it's more about authentic growth. And this person that I have as my guest this episode is one of the most authentic people that you can find on LinkedIn. They're always looking to help. My special guest this episode is Naomi Buckwalter. Naomi is Senior Director of Product Security at Contrast Security and also Executive Director at Cybersecurity Gatebreakers Foundation. Naomi, welcome to the show.
Awesome, Ron. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Hey, everyone. What's up?
Yes, excited to have you on. It's been a while since you've been on the show. You've been on the show before, but I want to say it's been years. So I'm glad to have you back on. I feel as though everybody should know who you are from one way or another if they're on LinkedIn. But, you know, for those that haven't been exposed to you on LinkedIn, maybe we could start by sharing, what do you share on LinkedIn that garners such attention and commands such a big audience?
Wow, I wish I knew, Ron, honestly. First of all, anyone who actually knows me in real life, I hate LinkedIn. Ron, come on. It's the most cringy website ever. It's like the worst part of ourselves on social media, like just bragging about ourselves. Oh God, it's so cringy. But I will say, if you know the game of capitalism, it is a game, so you might as well play it. And I found out some of the rules on LinkedIn, and it's one, you said authenticity, being authentic. Is that a word? Authenticity? It is now. I'm sorry, I just made up stuff. Yeah, authenticity. Just being yourself and being okay to share the vulnerable side of you, because part of the things that people don't like about LinkedIn, I mentioned this, was the cringe and the showing off, and just that part of just doesn't feel great. So to stand out from that, really, why not just be a little bit more human? And so that's what I did before the pandemic started. I just started writing things about what I thought were issues in security. And it's not just hiring, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But how we do vulnerability management was the big one. I absolutely hate the way we do things. Things like security questionnaires. Why do we do this to ourselves? And so I started writing about this stuff and realized that the internet likes to talk back to you. And so I like to talk back to the internet, and somehow made some friends. And eventually just started talking about the one thing I do care about is building up that next generation. So I'd like to talk to you about that today.
Let's do it. Let's do it. You know, one of the things that you just said that stood out is the authenticity online. I think it's so easy to be yourself around a complete stranger that you don't know. But when you are around strangers on LinkedIn, all of a sudden it's a different ball game. And I think that actually goes hand in hand with presenting yourself, making yourself more marketable, getting stake in the capital, because what you do on LinkedIn is career capital. If you are able to post about things that people are interested in, that you're also interested in, then that's capital you're able to exchange at a later date. Maybe it's a capital to come on a podcast or capital to write a book. But I've seen it just transform in front of me in so many different ways.
Yeah, it's real stuff. I mean, look at you, Ron. You're killing it, right? You're doing so great. And then you're right about that. It's a game. And if you know how to play the game, if you even know it's a game, that's number one. You see what the game is for what it is. You're able to see those patterns and pick up on it. And then not really exploit it. I think that's the worst word for it, but you know how to make it work for you. And it's just like anything in life. If you can figure out the game behind the game, then the world opens up. And you mentioned you get opportunities, that capital, you can add to it, you can take from it. eventually, yes, it does do that. But if you keep yourself open to new opportunities, wonderful things happen. I don't think I've ever done this going into it thinking like, oh, I just want to build a LinkedIn profile and have a fun. Like that was never my goal. It just happened that way. And
Right.
I'm going to use it for what it is. And it's a great journey. I know it's going to end at some point, but hopefully it can help people. It certainly has helped me. So.
One of the areas that I see you talking about constantly, especially when we first met during the pandemic, was breaking into cybersecurity. And ironically, your foundation is called Gatebreakers. When it comes to getting these opportunities, I think that breaking in is often that first step. And I've broken in several different times. I've broken in as a practitioner, I've broken in as a leader, and now I've broken in as someone that works in the content space. But every time that I do it, I definitely have a little bit of, I would say, self doubt, a little bit of worry. Maybe I've come to some conclusions that aren't actually conclusions. What are you seeing with, I guess the current state? 'Cause I'm sure it's a lot different. And how does your foundation fit into all of that?
Yeah, cybersecurity gatebreakers, shout out. Well, let's just say it hasn't really changed much, Ron, right? Even since the pandemic. I think it's gotten a little worse with the layoffs, AI making a big jump and big player in everyone's jobs, taking away some of these jobs that we see at the entry level. My ultimate goal is, and I don't, hopefully we are successful, but our ultimate goal is to improve everyone's lives by investing in that next generation, saying to hiring managers, it's okay to hire someone with no experience. It's okay. And then here's how to do it. Here's what you're looking for. And here's how to train that next generation. That's what we exist for. So am I seeing improvements? Yeah, I think so. Anecdotally, I do see people be like, "Hey, I just hired, or I'm hiring somebody for my role, my team. I'm sorry, and it's going to be no experience necessary." And I see that. I see more of that, and I get really excited. Do we have any more empirical data on? Is this making a difference? Like, no, but we're also not really looking for it. We're just trying to get that message out there. Not sure if I answered your question, but it is a problem, and we're only hurting ourselves. So why not try to do something about it?
So yeah, let's talk about it. How did you come to the idea of starting this organization? What made you want to do something like this?
So I'll tell you this, Ron. Have you ever tried to do something where someone says you can't do it and you're just like, aha, I'm just going to prove you wrong when I try to do this anyway? You ever have that?
Every day,
Every day.
every single day.
See, you know exactly. I mean, if you want to get somebody to do something, just say they can't do it. And it like works on
Exactly.
children. And I guess it worked on me because someone literally was like, well, you complain enough. Why don't you do something about it? I'm like, yeah, you're actually right about that. It's like how you like, maybe it's just the political climate that we exist in today. But I really feel like if you really want to do something about this country or do anything, like you yourself have an opportunity, you have an opportunity every day. And you have the responsibility to do something about it. So why not do something? So what I decided to do was like, got a couple of people. I'm like, can we do this together? Can we start a nonprofit? And yeah, we did. And it took us a couple months to figure out all the paperwork. But here we are, 501c3, officially as of 2022. Yes, it was. So been
Hey.
around for a while now. And our goal is to just get the message out there, no matter how long it's going to take us and who's going to listen. Yes, we go to different events and conferences, do talks like this on podcasts, put out some good content out there and help people out.
So let's dive into the mission
Yeah, let's
of
do it.
the foundation. What's the mission behind it?
Well, that's the thing. It's getting the message out there to help build up that next generation of cybersecurity professionals. And that
Nice.
means talking to hiring managers and CISOs and security leaders and giving them examples of how to do this well, how to hire that next generation, how to hire someone with no experience, what to look for, how to do interviews, how to grade yourself in an interview. There's rubrics out there that we publish. All these things are available online, by the way. I even have a LinkedIn course that talks about this. The idea is to just say, here's a new way of getting in talent. Have we thought about this? Can we challenge our assumptions in this industry? That's really all this is. It's like messaging. We're an education nonprofit. That's our official IRS stance, anyway.
Yeah.
Education nonprofit. We're trying to educate the hiring managers. Because if you think about it, Ron, don't you see a ton of organizations and nonprofits and groups that focus on the candidates. They focus on the students and the people trying to break in. There's like literally dozens. I can name like 5 of them right now, but not too many are focused on the other side of the equation, right? So that was the goal. It's like, let's talk about where the issues might actually be, which is maybe the issue is us, the people in the industry. Maybe we are putting up these gates that aren't necessary. I think there are gates that should be necessary, but I don't think they're the technical ones. I think some people really focus on like, oh, if you don't know networking, how are you ever going to secure a network? I'd be like, that might be true in some cases, but you can also learn that stuff. It's not that difficult. And so some of these gatekeepers are like, oh, it took me years to learn it, right? Like, that might have been true back in 1995 when you started, but today it's vastly different. We know this. And stop kidding ourselves to thinking you're only so special that you're the only person who can learn this stuff. Like, that's not true.
I personally would not want to hire someone that was doing the job that I'm hiring for. So I find that an interesting conundrum that we find ourselves in, like not wanting people with less experience than the job is actually gonna require. I think it's brilliant to do that because it gives someone an opportunity to grow. You get to make sure that they do that thing and do it the way that you expect them to do it. I see a lot of benefit. But what have you heard from like CISOs and security leaders? Do they want entry level and people that have less experience in that role, or do they actually want the opposite?
Oh, well, that's a great point, because like if you're thinking about it, why would you want someone with that same experience from one company to another, maybe for a little bit more money, right? Like you want somebody with that curiosity and that eagerness to learn, the humility to say something, I don't know this thing, maybe I can do it. I would rather have that person than someone who just be like, yeah, I'm just going to ask for more money and do the exact same thing. Like, to me, that's a little bit meh. Like, can we do better here? And you asked the question, are CISOs and security leaders, are they looking for high entry level? Yes. The answer is yes. They're not looking for it at the same rate as they are somebody more experienced, because it's still true. You need people to do like the bulk of the work. And where is that bulk of the work? It's in the everyday slog of things. And it takes experience and making mistakes and learning from them years after years. And I get that. However, what I'm seeing is we do ignore some of the fundamentals too. So think about this. Are you going to be hiring somebody to do your basic stuff? Baseline configuration, right? Configuration management. You've got asset management. You got security education and training. October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, at least here in America. Are we hiring the more expensive people to do some of the basic stuff? And if we are, why? Because then aren't they being massively overpaid? And also, are they not focusing on things that require their attention that might be more difficult? Security architecture, bigger systems that require more attention. Are we managing programs the way we should? Because if we're giving all those senior people all the responsibilities in the world, including some of these fundamental stuff, maybe we're just burning them out. Maybe we're not doing them the best, right? We're not helping them at all.
Yeah, that would definitely be my concern, bringing in someone that's already qualified for the gig. Dude, like, all right, are they going to get bored of it?
They're going to get bored and leave. Yeah, exactly. Like, I got another offer for 25% more, 50% more. All right, yeah, well, it was nice having you for a year and a half. Right? Yeah. So, and this is what I love about hiring juniors, and I've done this. I've hired a barista, an opera singer. I've hired someone from customer success, like the phones, into IT roles, and they kill it. They're smart. They understand technology. They've been around it. And this is what I love most about it, right? Like everyone knows in the room, everyone knows you know nothing. Like, you're so junior, you know nothing. And at that point, it's okay. Like, you can ask the questions. You don't have to pretend you know something that you don't.
Yes.
You can just totally like Google stuff, because I know you don't know it, and you don't have to sit there and fake it with me. And I don't know how many times I've told you, like, Ron, like, I can tell you stories about conversations I've had with senior people who literally could not answer like the most basic questions on cybersecurity. Like, for example, I had this one dude. I asked to do a public key exchange with them, right? It was via email. So I'm just like, hey, let's just do a public key exchange, right? So let me guess. Like, can you guess what they sent back? He sent back to me.
The private
Yes,
key.
He did. And it was over email, which everyone knows is unencrypted.
I just sent you the public key.
Dude. And so I'm like, well, so now your key is compromised. You're going to have to rotate this thing, right? And then he proceeds to send me maybe like 5 Wikipedia pages on what public keys were and private keys were. I'm like, dude, it's right here. It's in plain text. I could see your entire thing. Like, what are you doing? And so having these conversations over and over again makes me realize a lot of the senior folks really don't know what they're talking about. And it kind of sucks. Because then when you're trying to educate them, they put up those walls right away. Be like, no, I have years of experience. I know exactly how to do a public key exchange. I was like, but do you actually? Like, and that's just one of the very many examples. And I can tell you so many stories, and you can too, where you're like, you're a security practitioner. You should know better. And just because you have CISSP after your name doesn't mean you actually have that hands-on keyboard. You know exactly how to do this securely, because I guarantee you, a lot of people don't. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It really is.
What are your thoughts on the current rates for cybersecurity roles?
Dude, we're so overpaid, man. I know. Dude, hopefully my boss isn't listening to this, but I feel like we could be doing so much more. And I get it. Like our salaries inflated for sometimes good reason. We do a lot, but a lot of that's self-imposed on ourselves too. Like, think about all the things you're currently working on as a security practitioner. How much of that is just stuff that possibly doesn't have an impact on your company? Your security posture, the bottom line for our organization, probably minimal impact, probably. Because one, you don't know where those attacks are coming from. You don't have the data in front of you that just be like, yeah, this is absolutely trying to be exploited. Those attackers are in our front door every single day trying to exploit this thing. We need to put security controls and layers around this. We need defense mechanisms now. We spend so much time trying to figure out what the problem is. We don't actually spend enough time trying to solve actual problems. And so, like, I think, yeah, you asked the question, like, are we being overpaid? Like, maybe, yeah, because we're not focusing on the actual impact, on the risk. Like, we're not doing the right things. We don't get the data. We don't understand things. And it's so infinitely obvious to me, right? And maybe it's just a paycheck thing, but like, we get paid when there's an incident. Like, absolutely. We know how to put out the fires. Absolutely.
Yep.
But did we even have to have that incident in the first place? Did we do the right thing? We put ourselves in that position to have that incident in the first place, right? Like, come on. You leave a server out there, public facing, unauthenticated, with this zero data has been out there. We know this. Log4j, come on.
I look at it a lot like taking care of your body. Like, we know what we should do. We should go to the gym every day. We should eat healthy every day. But we'll find ourselves in a drive-through line, and we'll sit in the drive-through
all day.
knowing I should be going home and eating healthy and then working out, but still go through it. I think we deal with the same thing from like an enterprise side. Like, we know that we should not be putting our keys on our source code. But sometimes it's just a little easier. I don't have to like do all this key exchange process. I'm just gonna hard code it for a second.
I know. And then we make excuses.
Second, I look at a Slack and I forget that I pasted it there and I committed to GitHub. And then boom, here we are today.
Yeah. That's some of that basic stuff, man. That basic stuff. That's just
and you said it best, the fundamentals.
Fundamentals. It's always been the fundamentals.
So important.
And maybe it does take someone with years of experience to see the bigger picture, right? But you also need to start training the younger generation on how to do good information security practice. That is the lost art.
I need to jump in for a second and share some details about a special group that we've created for you, our listeners. We understand the importance of creativity in cybersecurity, and Hacker Valley has created a special Cyber Creators Mastermind. Each month, we meet and discuss how to break down technical concepts through stories, the intricacies and opportunities of using audio and video to highlight what's important in cybersecurity, and we share how you can use content to highlight the hard work that you put into your craft. You can check out the mastermind by visiting hackervalley.com/mastermind. We'd love to help unlock your creative potential and would love to see you there.
So a lot of what I see in our industry is like, hey, I'm going to follow a framework, just boom, 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 and not really think critically about it. It's like, what's the bigger picture? What am I actually trying to do here? They just literally, they get a control and they're like, here's my task. I'm going to do the thing. And then we're secure. We're good, right? Like, that's what the damn security questionnaires are telling you to do. You're not stepping back and be like, how is this affecting my organization? Because if you're doing too much security, you know someone is going to be doing shadow IT or pasting things in Slack because it's just easier. They're going to go around and subvert your security controls because you aren't thinking about how it affects the business. Sometimes we are actively hurting ourselves by doing too much. And so when we're in our organizations, we have to realize where we sit. We're not the most important business unit. We don't exist without the business. So if we're trying to tell the business how to do business things, they're going to absolutely shut us down. They're going to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not how we want to do stuff. You're either with us or you can go away. Like, we'll just ignore you because you're just noise. You're telling us things. And oh, by the way, and I hate this one, but I use it sometimes. But hey, it's not a problem. No, we're not getting breached. No, our data's not that interesting. Why would someone try to attack us? Okay, well, that's what our goal is. We have to tell the business why they need to care about security.
Yeah.
Right. And if we don't, then that's where the problems happen.
I agree. I think that we have such an amazing pay scale, like for junior level to especially CISOs. I see that Hitch Partners, one of my good friends over there, they drop a report every year and it has details about the hundreds of thousands that CISOs specifically make. And I think that their new reports have, I think, security architects as well.
Oh, yeah.
And there's an abundance of capital. But with what you're saying, it's almost like fighting a losing battle, or at least a battle that can't be won. Maybe it's not going to be a battle that's going to be lost, but it's a battle that you're not necessarily going to get full coverage on. And I think that's somewhat of a good thing because that's how you stay gainfully employed. That's how companies can innovate. They're taking on new technology, so there's new risk. But sometimes I feel like it's a confusing place to be in from a cyber perspective, knowing that I can't solve for everything, yet trying.
Oh, yeah. No, you just said it because where are our priorities? Well, you can tell it right away. It's where our money is. What's that phrase, Ron? It's like where your heart is, or something like where just your money is. That's where your heart is, or something.
Yeah.
So I know it sounds kind of weird, but when you say pay scale, when I think security pay scale, I do think it's inflated. I do. But that also could mean, if you think critically about this, maybe other pay scales need to be where we are too. Maybe we're exactly where we're supposed to be because we bring that value to our business. And maybe it's the other parts of the organizations that need to keep up. But comparatively, are we bringing that same value to our organization? Hopefully the answer is yes. But you also want to make sure you're very clearly defining what good looks like. So if you know what your priorities are and you can explicitly say them to your boss and your peers and all around the organization, here's XYZ that we're working on, priorities 1, 2, and 3. Help us, help you. This is how we're going to help the business grow. This is how we're going to innovate quickly by doing priorities 1, 2, and 3 for security. Then they understand what your role is. And then they can very easily say, like, that person exists and they are deserving of that salary. Right. And that's what the goal is for security. It's not just all the security controls at all the time. That's not how you measure success. It's like, how quickly can you help your business innovate? How quickly can your business innovate? And in a secure way? Are you giving them those parameters to operate securely? That's what security, we're risk management. Right.
It would be a crazy world. It would be an awesome world if everyone got paid at a cybersecurity salary. But I think a lot of businesses would not be around.
Yeah, I know. That's why there's only 2 of us, right? In the whole organization. And there's reason for that too. I get it. But we're burning ourselves out. I think the latest stat in the ISACA workforce survey is something like 85% are looking for a change, either leaving the industry altogether or just moving on to a different role because we're so freaking burned out. We're so freaking burned out. What's the average CISO tenure at a company? Isn't it something like 2.5 years? It's something really, really short.
I think
Something
that's
crazy.
the case across the board with like security engineers as well. Like it's
There you
not
go.
as short, but it's still like, looking at previous generations, they would stay for 10, 20, 30 years. And now I think getting 4 years out of someone is kind of the norm.
Yeah. You're lucky if you're getting the 4 years, right? And then actually some people are like, oh, you've been at a company for 4 years. That's weird. That's a little too long, right? Especially in the software industry.
Yeah.
It's so tough. It's so tough. And there's no one right answer, but I will say we're making it infinitely harder on ourselves by trying to do all the security things and not necessarily the right things. I think a lot of more of our focus needs to be on the patching and the vulnerability management, like the stuff that is more fundamental to information security. And then if we need to, ride alongside the engineers and the innovators to help them build things securely. And this is kind of where I sit right now in my career is we're taking care of the fundamentals. And I have to learn exactly how modern software is built in the year of our Lord 2024, because security people are not great at this. We're not great at application security and development and DevOps and stuff like that. We need to figure ourselves out, have a little self-awareness and understand what we're not good at, which is, to me, not understanding how software is built in the year of our Lord, 2024. It is so different than it was even 5-10 years ago. So if we know how modern DevOps shops work, we can finally be a partner for them. And then they start to listen to you. They're like, oh, okay, so you know exactly how we build software and release software and maintain it in how we do SDLC, the CI/CD, like how we build software here in our company. If you understand how we do this and you can help us and give us value and help us release secure software, they're going to finally be like, all right, come on to the conversations. Come and talk to us. We welcome you, security person. You're not just throwing scan results at us. We're having an active conversation with you about security architecture and things that are actually fun from an engineering perspective. Because they're actually fun conversations, I promise you.
With technology, I always get calls from my mom talking about layoffs. She's like, oh my gosh, did this have anything to do with you? Like these massive layoffs that we saw like post-pandemic. And the reason why developers get laid off or fired is completely different than why cybersecurity people get let go or fired. And I think we talk a lot about the hiring gaps and whatnot, but we don't necessarily talk about the state at which people are getting let go and fired. What's been, I guess, your exposure to the people that you've worked with and personal as well?
Like being laid off and stuff. Well, does your mom or any of your friends actually, like, whenever there's a CrowdStrike that happens or something big in the news, anything IT, literally the keyword is IT. And they're like, run. Are you affected? That's because they don't really, like, bless their
I
hearts.
don't even work at Google.
Yeah, I know, like, bless their hearts. But they don't even understand the difference, right? It's cute and at the same time frustrating. It's like, oh, bless your heart. I've personally not been affected by massive layoffs, no, because I don't work for those massive FANG companies. Hopefully, God willing, I never will. But I've had friends who work for those companies and they've been laid off. And yeah, they're struggling right now and I have a heart for them. It's hard. And then that's always going to be the case. There's always going to be churn. I think we're feeling it a little bit more now because it's all kind of happening all at once with the return to office and stuff like that. And people like, companies doing this so that they can save money instead of severance. Yeah, we all know this big secret. That's not a secret. So personally, no, I've not been affected myself, but yes, I've seen other people, unfortunately. How about you?
Yeah, and Fang is definitely like always the poster child, but I've seen a lot of the venture-backed cyber startups go through pretty big layoffs. The only time I've ever been laid off was at a cybersecurity startup right after a funding round.
Oh
And so
no.
it's always
Why?
interesting to see like, what's the possibility? What could happen? And I think that there's a lot to unpack. I'm not sure, I definitely need to like bring on some founders that have been through this type of scenario, but I'm sure there's reasons behind it, whether it's like, hey, we thought that we're gonna get something different, or we just can't afford you anymore.
Oh, interesting. Oh, what a terrible thing to do to people. Yeah, that's wrong. Especially if
You
you
got to do
just
what
got
you got to
hired.
do.
Oh,
It's the business. And what
yeah.
I've come to terms with, and I think it's important to remember this in your professional career, your job is not your family. You definitely want to disassociate the work and life because they're very two different facets of life. And you should work on both. And if they have overlap, great, but it's not necessarily designed for that.
Yeah. No, you got it. Like so many of our identities here in this capitalistic society is tied to our jobs. And I hate that. So I'll tell you the story that when I got fired, it like crushed me, just my identity, right? And I'll tell you about this. Uh, didn't really get fired for anything bad, right? It was just, I wasn't a good fit for what they needed. It was a software startup, did marketing automation, and that was their first security hire. I was hired to build out security for this company. And I was there for about a year and a half. And we both realized at the same time, it's like, I don't think I'm a good fit. Either I didn't understand the role, which I think was the main reason why I was let go, but I didn't understand the purpose of security. And earlier on this podcast, I said, the purpose of information security is to do risk management for the business, is to help the business operate securely and innovate in a secure way so they can move forward. So what I think I was doing at this company was I was stopping them from doing what they needed to do. I was giving them way too much stuff to do and worry about. Whereas what they needed was somebody to be like, you can take care of the stuff that, and I really don't want to be bothered with it right now, and only tell me the things that are really high impact, really high priority. Help me figure out what the priority should be. And I wasn't able to do that. So when I got fired, I realized, like, first of all, my identity was just super crushed. I think I cried for like
Oh.
whole weekend, right? Like I was just so crushed because my first time I failed at something. Like what? And especially growing up, like high energy, high like potential, all that stuff. You're like, oh, you're so smart, but you can do whatever you want. And that was the first time in my life where I failed at something. And if you've ever gone through that, you just get knocked down multiple pegs. And then you have to kind of build yourself back up. But really appreciated that time in my life. I actually reached back out to the person who fired me like years later. I'm like, thank you for firing me. Like, I absolutely deserved it. And he literally goes, hey, I've been watching you in your career. You've been killing it. I was like, thank you. And I needed that closure one, but I also needed that getting fired. I needed that because it made me realize all the things I didn't know, especially about my role as a security practitioner. It's like, we are here to help the business. We are not the most important person in the room. We are not. And I tell security people all the time, like they do not want to listen to you unless you have something good to say, and stop telling them no, tell them how. And I'm not the only one who says this. Like I literally, all this stuff I talk about, I've used and I've learned from other people who are smarter than me. Dr. Eric Cole, he's great. You go to his YouTube. Obviously, your YouTube's better, Ron, but let's just say he's got a great YouTube channel. It's Life of a CISO, awesome channel. He talks about all the things, why CISOs exist. The Smartest Person in the Room, a book written by Christian Espinosa. Excellent, excellent book. He posits that the main reason for us losing the war on cybersecurity is because we are the jerks in the room. Nobody wants to listen to us. We're actively hurting ourselves, right? So it's like our ego. And so when I figured this out after I got fired, not only was my identity rebuilt from the ground up, I realized I'm a service for the business. Aha. And then that actually massively changed all the things in my career. I got better results within my jobs. I got better job offers. I got better opportunities. I made more friends within the business. I got more things done. You get more help. That's another thing. How many of us security people are just like massively overworked and therefore burnt out? Because we don't have the relationships and the advocates for security. So why not be nicer? And yeah, that can be a little hard for us, Ron. You're a nice guy, Ron. You're a nice guy. But for where I was and where I am now, it is massively different. You wouldn't even. I was such a jerk back then. Oh my god, I might still be, but I'm definitely like less of one. At least I'm more self-aware about it now, and I can like stop myself if I'm ever getting too jerky.
When you need to, like,
yeah. Let me just pause this mic here. Let's just mute myself while I freak out. No, because I understand the purpose of information security is to be a risk manage risk for the business, is to help the business. Like, oh, it took me so long because about my history here. When I was growing up in information security, I worked for a company called Vanguard, huge mutual fund giants. You probably have mutual funds managed by Vanguard. I worked there for 12 and a half years. I learned what good information security looks like. And not only that, I got the attitude that security was like everything, because that's how security was treated at a financial company, you would think. Very rightfully so. So when I took the same exact attitude of like security is like the head honcho and like the king of the nerds, like we need to do all the security things and save everyone. Like I took the same attitude to other companies, and like the other companies are like, what the hell are you talking? Sorry to curse. What the hell? Like that's a terrible attitude to have. And like coming from that attitude into like a company that doesn't care as much. Oh, mind blowing, man. I was like, dude, what is happening to my world? Right.
Wow. You know what is so interesting about that is I don't know why I've been in this part of this boat as well. We in security come in with a little bit of a bone to pick.
Dude, why?
Like, we will be the savior. And if it's not my way, then it's the highway.
Right.
And now we are waking up. Like, actually, it was never my way to begin with.
Exactly.
And I think that's important because that is what a team player does.
Yeah.
Any type of person that is supporting the business is thinking in the way of like, all right, how do I allow you to do what you're trying to do and make you able to do that? Like, it's never like, how do I get you to go this way? It should always be, how do I get you to go forward and support you? That's it.
Yeah, you got it. And then being okay if they say, no, we're just going to do it our way. Right. You still have to be a team player that way. Be like, cool, because let me help you. Right. Like you don't want to put on that attitude. Be like, well, you didn't want my advice. Well, F you guys. You can't have that. That's not team player. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and a team player says, "Okay, bet. As long as you're allowed to do that,
you're allowed to do that.
do it.
I'm with you.
I'll check in with you
Yeah.
in 6 months, if that's all right."
Right.
And
Exactly.
we could just have a nice virtual coffee or in-person meeting,
Bro, that's
see how your
exactly
kids
it.
are doing,
That's
ask
how you
about
make
that thing that
friends.
you didn't wanna accept as risk, and then if maybe there's a new conversation that we have in 6 months, but
Yes.
you're so right, like, it's all about just building good
Oh,
relationships
it's
and
100%
being
that.
of benefit and service to people.
It's so ironic when we talk about information security. It is such a people-focused job, and people don't realize this until it's a little too late, until they get fired like I did. But when people think information security, they're like, oh, that's just networks and packets and security controls. It is that, but think about the bigger picture. You can't do all those things yourself. So you need to be able to build good relationships. So having empathy and emotional intelligence, self-awareness, humility, all these things that make you enjoyable to work with, humble, hungry, and smart. If you're if you're nice to work with, people will start sharing things with you and wanting to help you and giving you the opportunity to actually make impact and positive change in your job, in your organization. That's where the magic happens. And so when I tell people, like, when I say things like security is actually a relationship job, people like, first of all, like the really unself-aware people, they're like, what are you talking about? That's just bullshit. Right. I was like, yes, you still have to be good at the tech. I'm not saying you can't be, but like at the end of the day, if you can't get people to enjoy working with you, they're never going to do
Mm-mm.
anything security wise. Yeah. And it's very, very true. Security is everyone's responsibility, not just the security person's. So you need more people doing security, not just the security people. You need everyone. And that is how good security happens. Yes.
So you speak to people on both sides, the people that are trying to up level themselves, maybe break into a new role. You speak to the security leaders. What is the current state of standing out, getting the best opportunity? Because that's what I'm here for, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are like, I want to up level and I want to do what works. So what do you think works today?
If you're listening and you're struggling in your career and you're thinking, oh, I wish I had more opportunities in my current role, or why can't I get that promotion? Or man, I just can't get an interview. Or if I get an interview, I never get a call back. Why? All right, here's what I want you to do, right? I want you to take a step back and think about the conversations you've had, the tone of your voice that you might have had, your body language, your eye contact, things that you might not have been top of mind or on your radar at the time. But now that you've done it, take a step back and be like, how could you have done a little bit better in that instance? How could your body language have been more positive? How can your eye contact have been more soft or kind? Can you have used different language or a different tone with that in that conversation? And do you think that would have helped you? Right. And when you start asking those conversations and thinking back and be like, now that I'm away from it, how could I have done better? You'll start recognizing some patterns, hopefully. Hopefully. The pattern could be or should be maybe the root cause of all my problems is me. So if you look back all the problems you've ever had in your entire life, not just career, but relationships too, think about that. The common denominator to all my problems, the root cause of everything, the similar pattern to all my problems is me. So once you have that self-awareness, you can start working on yourself. You give yourself that permission to get a little bit better for the next time. Maybe you can reach out to somebody that you might have not had a great relationship with. You can reach out to them and be like, hey, I've been thinking, and I really want to apologize for that time that I did this to you, or I acted in this way. It wasn't great. Is there anything that I could do now to make up for that? Or can I be better the next time? This is what I'm working on now to be better for the next time. When they start realizing you're working on yourself, man, the world opens up big time. And so when you're thinking like, oh, I can't get promoted. Well, maybe when you were really, really off-putting in those meetings where we needed you to have empathy and build relationships, maybe you weren't that at that time. You know, is that something you can improve on? And when you realize that, I'm telling you, Ron, it works. It works every time. And I'm not the only one who says this. I'm not the only one. I promise you. It's not just me making stuff up.
One of my favorite books is The Alchemist. And this kind of one of the core messages is once you kind of set an intention and you reach out, you ask for help. In The Alchemist, there was this king that was this protagonist's kind of North Star for a chapter or two. And this king said, once you set out the intention, the universe is going to conspire to give you what you're working towards. And I think that's a great piece that you just said. And going back to what you were speaking about with the manager that fired you, is like you went back and you just kind of like aired it out. And not only did you get that closure that you needed, but you got a cheerleader along the way as well. And that, I think the more that we talk about our goals, I'm looking for this job, I'm looking for this promotion, you speak that into existence, just let everyone who will listen know, then they'll know what to do when the action presents itself, that opportunity presents itself. They're going to invite you in.
Yeah, like what's that word? Oh, dang. Manifestation or whatever and
Yeah.
stuff like that. You know, there's something to it. I mean, everything's energy, so why not send out some positive energy? And it comes back to you if you believe in karma and all that stuff. Like everything's energy and like attracts like. Yeah, and that is true for energy. Good energy attracts good energy. So put out to the universe some good energy. Why not? Give it a try. It's better than constant negativity, which is obviously what some people want to do. And that comes back to you either in worse ways in your body and everything. So it can only help. And not to say, Ron, like we want to be careful here. We don't want to tell people to have like that toxic positivity. That's not what we're aiming for. It's more of a self-awareness to realize when you are struggling, it's okay to reach out to somebody. And when you're in a good place, give that good energy back too. And it's a constant cycle of just learning and relearning from failures and mistakes, applying those lessons and trying to help other people. Because I think at the end of the day, again, since we're all energy, we want to be like good energy. So love one another, help each other. I think that's what this whole life experience is about.
For anyone that has that good energy, they want to give it back. They see this episode, they hear about Gatebreakers Foundation, and they want to do something positive. What would be your message to them to learn more about it and maybe provide some support?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So you don't even have to join us, but if you're a hiring manager or you're on a security team today, I think the best thing you could do is really advocate for that next generation. It's okay to hire someone with no experience. I promise you it's okay. It's a little scary. It does take a little work, but they will blow you away. Those guys, those kids, or young people, older, it doesn't even matter. They're coming in, fresh eyes, new energy, new blood. They will help you immediately. You can give them very fundamental things to do that you probably don't want to do yourself, and they will provide that immediate impact. It does not take months and years. It takes weeks. It takes days. They will provide that impact. You can help build out the next generation and then leave that legacy that you probably want to do anyway, right? So you don't have to join us or anything. You don't have to donate. Just help us spread the message and be an advocate for that next generation because it only helps the rest of us, especially as we grow up and grow on. The veterans of information security today will leave eventually. We want to have that next generation follow us and have the time to build up the experience of learning good information security. And what better way of you teaching them what good information security looks like? And hopefully in 20 years, we won't have, public key exchanges over email that include private keys.
We'll keep our hearts open to that. I'm not sold on it, but I am sold on doing a positive good to the community. Naomi, I wanted to say thank you so much for spending some time out of your busy day, jumping on the mic, speaking with me and the Hacker Valley audience. If you haven't done so already, be sure to check out the show notes or description wherever you're listening or watching to connect with Naomi and also learn more about her foundation. And with that, we will see everyone next time.